Hey YouTube, how you doing? Thanks for stopping by. This is Matthew with the Counselors Guild. Today I'll be looking at my first ever classical psych review. This is classical theories, classical. It's like the stuff was like 300 years ago. This wasn't very long ago, but just older things. Some of the stuff from the founding fathers of psychology, and just kind of looking at their concepts and ideas. So, first one we're going to do is Alfred Adler's definition of the psyche. Okay, Alfred Adler is one of the three pioneers of psychology. Freud, Jung, and Alfred Adler were the three. Okay, he was the first ego psychologist and social psychologist. His theory is what individual psychology is. That was his term for it. And he uses holism, social interest, private logic, lifestyle, and goal striving. Okay. Psyche. So this isn't Alfred Adler's definition of psyche. These are just some common, ideas of what it is. So it's the totality of the human mind. This includes your conscious and unconscious. It's not your biological brain. Okay. Everybody has a 3-pound floating mass of flesh in their skull. Right? It's our psyche. It's our mind that makes us unique. So it creates our uniqueness. Our uniqueness and personality does not develop from nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. Individual psychology tries to explain that. And what set of circumstances create your unique self? Where mental illness comes from? Okay. Again, with Freud, he was the first one to really say it's not biological, it's psychological. What's ailing these people, or something that can't be seen. Okay. So, psyche. Adler's concept of consciousness, or psyche. Adler believed that the development of the psyche is connected with free movement, and the evolution and progress of all psychological phenomena were conditioned by the mobility of the organism. Organisms with no mobility have no psyche, but can still live, grow, and survive without it. Example is a tree. Okay. Adler thinks that through this mobility movement that our psyche becomes stimulated, thus promoting and intensifying mental activity. Consciousness, psyche, and mobility cannot exist without the other. So inner growth through experiences. So we develop this personality because we're moving and grooving around. Okay? Depending on where we're at in life, our personality and who we are is going to make a big difference on a lot of things, from social groups, whether we're liked or not. Are we good at our job? Do we get along with people? So our survival and our life is very dependent on our personalities and how who we are, okay, how we become. Okay. The function of the psyche. Adler acknowledges a primitive evolutionary purpose for the psyche as a tool for attack or defense, with which the living organism reacts to the situation in which it finds itself. How we deal with problems, strive for superiority. So again, I think, even with Adler's idea of movement, even like the lower forms of animals, think of a crab. Do they have a psyche? I mean, it's pretty primitive, right? They probably are not all the same. Look at dogs, right? Dogs, we all know they have their little quirks about them. So I don't think he was way off, but I just sometimes wonder, okay, what about viruses or something? They move, or if you look at some of these microbiological organisms, they have psyches, and if they did, they probably are more, I don't want to say primitive, but simple, where it's just well, this is how I survive, this is how I not die, this is how I find, an opposite mate, So I think there is something to moving, okay? Adler explains that the ultimate purpose of the psyche is to guarantee the continued existence of the organism and to enable it to develop in safety. Movement through a dangerous world. We all live in a dangerous world. How does our personality develop to where we lower how dangerous it is? Well, again, being a part of a group helps, right? Being liked helps. There's certain personality types that make you more liked by the group, and you won't be an outcast and have to handle nature on your own. So I think there's something to this, his theory. Okay, the psyche develops in relation to the environment in which it lives, receiving and responding to stimuli from the environment. Okay, yeah, I can see that. Different personalities develop in the environment in which they live, helping us to survive in that environment through adaptation, molds itself to what is best. Only the context can determine whether defects in the psyche are assets or liabilities. Okay? Example, being vulnerable or guarded guarantees survival. Go back to survival. So the example there was, say you grew up in a rough neighborhood where you kind of had to be guarded, right? You can't show weakness or people take advantage of that. Well, if you move out of that environment and you move into maybe adulthood and you're trying to form intimate relationships, well, you're gonna be really guarded. You're not gonna want to show emotion because that's what you grew up in. So it's probably helpful back in the the environment, but then when you're in relationships, it's not very helpful. So again, it's the context in which it was developed, whether it's an asset or liability. Okay. Our purpose and goal directedness. Our civilization, okay, this is a quote from Alfred Adler, okay, our civilization plays an important role in the development of the person's psychological goal. It sets up rules and boundaries against which a child struggles until he discovers how to fulfill his wishes in a way that promises both security and from danger, but that further element of safety that guarantees our continued existence under optimal circumstances. Okay, so I put the macro level. Like, I feel like what he meant by that is the laws of the land kind of thing. What society you live in determines what's right, what's wrong, how you should act, how you shouldn't act. So I think there's a macro level, and then the next one I put micro level, and this is a quote from Alfred Adler here. This is my next point. The fundamental factors that influence the psyche are founded in infancy. Upon these foundations, a superstructure is built that may be modified, influenced, or transformed. So again, through parenting. How are your parents? How is your early infancy? How is your early childhood? Again, that's kind of a micro level. Okay. Multiplicity of influences soon forces a child into a definite attitude towards life and conditions, his own particular responses to the problems life poses. Okay. A person's mental life is determined by his goal. No human being can think, feel, wish, or dream without all these activities being determined, continued, modified, and directed towards an ever-present objective. Alfred Adler was very big on goals. He thinks, his theory is that we develop our personality through the goals we set for ourselves. Simply, our psyche exists to help us reach our goals. Your psyche is set up to help you reach goals that society has placed on you. Okay. Oops. Adler's idea of psyche. Knowing the goal of an individual, okay, and knowing also something of the world, the context in which he was raised, enables us to understand the meaning of the ways he expresses himself and of the direction his life takes and how these things function as a preparation for his goal. Our psyche relates to our goals. Adler found it important for a therapist to become familiar with a person's social context by exploring factors such as birth order, lifestyle, and parental education. Again, society can place goals on you without even you knowing it, right? Our society here in the Western world, right? What's the main goal that's put on us, right? Being independent, working, supporting ourselves, making money. Those types of goals you don't really think about, but they're placed on you, and it drives developing a personality that's going to help you survive in this Western world. So I'm going to be successful. I got to do this, and this, and be this way. Okay. We also need to know what steps the individual must take to reach his goal. Just as we can know the trajectory of a stone if we let it fall to earth. Although people do not follow a fixed natural law because the ever-present goal, then every psychological tendency must move towards it. So again, I mean, you can even look at like different age, like when you're a teenager, what are your goals, right? I mean, there's obviously different goals. Maybe you're looking to find, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, and try to get in a relationship. Are you going to modify your personality in order to, you know, fulfill that goal? You know, how do you do that? What do you do? I mean, you pick up what you learn from the internet, or you know, what you see in movies. You know, who knows? But you're going to modify your personality, or you're going to grow your personality in order to fit that goal. I think that's it. Okay, so very simple, very short. Again, I'm going to be doing a lot of different concepts. You know, this is just the psyche. Alfred Adler had a lot more, but the psyche, again, it develops through movement, okay, and it helps us to survive in that environment that we have to move in by forming our personalities to, you know, to live in that society, okay. And of course, he develops his theory, and he develops his, you know, different therapeutic interventions. He has a lot of different therapeutic interventions that comes from this idea of where the psyche comes from, what's its purpose, you know, how does it develop. Okay, he develops his theory and his interventions from that idea. Okay, so that's all I have on Alfred Adler. I really like Alfred Adler. I think he might be one of my favorite. I fluctuate. I really like a lot of what he says, though. I think he might be one of my favorite of the three. But I do fluctuate sometimes. I'll probably read a Freud book and like him more. But this is my first video. Please like and subscribe. I'll be talking about the more and more concepts in the future, so don't miss out, okay? But that's all I have on him. Please comment, too, if you have comments. Maybe I missed something or misunderstood. If you know more about the theory, let me know. But that's all I have. So I thank you for watching, and you have a wonderful day, all right? Take it easy out there.